there. You're listening to Extra Healthy-ish, the big sister podcast to Healthy-ish. Both podcasts from Body and Soul aim to give you that little bit extra in your day for your mind, body and soul. I'm your host, Felicity Harley. Today I'm speaking with the gorgeous, inside and out, Jesinta Franklin. The model and mum of two is the face of the new Maya beauty campaign, Beauty Fixated. She's also the wife of a Sydney Swan superstar, Lance Franklin. But today she's going to talk about confidence, how she struggled with it during motherhood and how she's learnt to let everything go and really live in her beautiful skin. Jess, thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish. Now, how do you stay extra healthy-ish in your life?
I think now it takes even more effort now that I have kids. Like before it was just like you would wake up in the morning, you'd go and exercise, you'd go get your smoothie, you'd come home, you'd do your skincare routine, and you could do things throughout the day that, I don't know, it took more time to be healthy, but now it's like you've got to be healthy on the run. I try to take a small moment throughout every day to do something for myself, whether that's even a 2-minute meditation, a 20-minute walk around the block without the kids, and just doing small things that hopefully add up in the wellness picture, I suppose, because I do struggle keeping on top of things, my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health when you're a mum, because you're so focused on the kids all the time. So, yeah, I think it's just about finding those little moments and those little things you can do to hopefully add up and create a healthy life.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just the limits of time, isn't it? When you had so much more time and then suddenly you've got none and then you're busy picking up toys or cooking bone broth or whatever it may be, and you're like, oh, hang on, what about me?
Yeah, and you often get forgotten. And as a mum, I think that's one of our superpowers and maybe one of our downfalls too, is that we just constantly put people ahead of us and needs ahead of ours. But it's like that, the saying, you've got to put on your own oxygen mask before you assist anyone else. I try to remind myself of that all the time, that if I'm not healthy, then my family's not healthy, essentially.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I want to talk about confidence today and, well, inner beauty, as we discussed on Healthy-ish, and how you navigate it all. What does it look like and feel like to you?
It's just knowing who I am and not being afraid to execute life in that way, because I think sometimes what can happen, especially when you're younger, you kind of mold and twist and do things to hopefully please someone or fit in somewhere. And yeah, it's just about every day, executing life that in a way that is true to yourself, even in those moments where it's really, really hard to, or it feels really uncomfortable to do that. That to me is what true confidence is. And even if it's going to upset someone or rock the boat or maybe not be, the right thing, I don't know, perceived to be done in that time. But for me, it's just that self-assurance. It's just like, this is who I am. Here's what I believe in, and living your life authentically to that. So
has this been something that you've had to work? I mean, you've struck me as a fairly confident person throughout all your 20s and now you're in your 30s. Is it something that you've been conscious of or you've kind of worked on, or how's it grown over the years?
Yeah, so I always felt very sure of who I was, and even through high school, I just felt like I had really clear direction. I knew what I wanted to do. I kind of never fell off the wagon, so to speak, because I was just so laser focused and really confident in myself. And I don't want that to sound arrogant, but I was just really self-assured. But becoming a mum was the first time I'd really experienced a lack of confidence and a feeling of, I'm not sure if what I'm doing is right, a fear of judgment, what are other people going to think? And I'd actually never felt that before. And I don't think my confidence was like arrogance in my 20s. I just really was, knew what I wanted. But yeah, being a mum, I kind of a lot of that crumbled, and I just was so worried about what people thought of me, and even right down to how I remember going out, you know, in the winter months with Tallulah, and like if she didn't have, you know, the right socks on, or did she have to have a beanie on? Did she need to be double wrapped? And what if I walk past someone and they think that my baby's cold? And all these things, I just felt a real lack of confidence in that area. So that's something that I've really worked on. Even though I knew what I was doing is right deep down, it was the first time I'd really experienced that overwhelming sense of just being not
vulnerability,
sure
perhaps.
of what I was doing. Yeah, and vulnerability. Yeah, that's probably what it was. So I've really tried to work on that, especially with Rocky. I feel so much better with Rocky now, but lots of self-doubt.
Well, I mean, firstly, I don't think that's arrogant when you're growing up. I think it's quite refreshing to hear, you know, women particularly talk about the fact that they were confident through, you know, their teenage years and their 20s, because often so many women aren't. But there are women out there, and perhaps we're a bit nervous to speak up about it because we're worried people might think it's arrogant. So I think it's wonderful that you know, it's refreshing to hear that from someone. And secondly, you know, with motherhood, why do you think mothers struggle, and where did it come from for you, struggling with confidence?
Yeah, so I don't know. I had an experience with someone who was helping me out with the children, and I felt really, really judged. And that person was probably there to be supporting me, and it kind of went the opposite way. And I think that's really where it stemmed from for me. And I just started second guessing myself. And it was a real lesson in learning for me to be like, you can't let people who are really external to you or your family have that much of an impact on your confidence. In everything I'd ever done work-wise, I'd never let that in. I was always, you know, really sure and really confident in my decisions, and also really happy to admit when I'd made a mistake or done something wrong, and really open to receiving feedback and wanting to do better. But when it came to motherhood, it was like almost so close to home that it hurt a bit. And yeah, so I think it came from that, and I had to do a lot of healing and a lot of work. And you know, even when people were giving me looks at cafes, I was like, oh, they thought that I've done, you know, the wrong thing here. And
they probably
made
didn't.
me really nervous and anxious. Yeah, and that's the thing. They probably didn't even give me a look. I was just making it up in my head. But yeah, it was just interesting that I let something so external have such a big impact on me. And yeah, it's you know, being a mum, especially the first time round, there is such a sense of vulnerability that comes with that. And I don't think I'd ever experienced that before. So, it's taken a lot of work, but I just have to keep reminding myself that I know what's best for my kids and for me. And
we'll be back after this. I think it's a time when women, we're so used to controlling our lives growing up. You know, we know what to do, we know how to function, we look at other people, we can do it like this. But then when motherhood is thrown at us, we can't control it. We don't know what we're doing, and we're just floundering along. And I think that, I think it's a normal feeling to feel judged, to feel out of your depth, to not know what to do. So talk us through how you've managed to cope. I mean, you talk about healing. How have you done this, and how can perhaps our listeners who are going through this, become more confident in themselves as a mother?
Yeah, I actually found two friends that had children similar ages and confided in them. And I've actually got one friend who just has probably helped me through so much more than what she knows she's helped me through, who I could have really honest conversations with. Even those days where I'm like, you know what, today I'm actually just not enjoying being a mum. And I think sometimes as mums, we are really afraid to say that out loud, or we feel like we're going to be judged of that, or be told that we're a bad mum, because we want those days where, we just don't want to be around our children. We want a little bit of personal space. So I found that those two people that I could have really honest honest conversations with. Obviously, I can have honest conversations with, you know, my husband and my family, but I think it's nice to have someone who's going through something, you know, another woman quite similar to you. So, and it can be even at 1 a.m. where you just send a message and you're like, hey, today's just been so tough. I can't stop crying. Does it get any better? Is it normal to feel like this? And just to have those completely unfiltered, raw, honest, real conversations. And that's been so great for me, because in doing that, you realize that most people are not going through things just uniquely, if that makes sense. It's like a lot of people are experiencing the exact same things as you. And I think that actually applies to all facets of life, not just motherhood, you know, marriage, friendships, relationships, finances. You can always find someone that is having a very similar experience to you, and who's willing to talk to you through it. So that's been a great lesson for me, because I think you also just want to but maybe just put up this I don't know, picture that everything's great and I'm doing fine and I'm coping, and it's nice to let that wall down and that guard down sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it takes guts to put your hand up and say, I need help, or I need to talk, or I need some advice. And I think, you know, the more we can do that and the more we encourage others to do it, the better it will be. Now, having a baby obviously has tested your confidence. Now, what about this shoot for Maya? How did you feel going into it? Did you feel confident? Were you, you know, it's all outward facing. I know it's not inward, but there's probably a lot of inward stuff that you need to summon to get out there and do that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, no, I felt really good. First time round after having Tallulah, I felt quite self-conscious, because there was obviously lots of things that change with your body and your skin and your hair and all of that. But second time around with Rocky, I feel like I've learned a lot about myself, and that stuff not that it doesn't like matter, of course, like we want to feel and look good. That is just human nature. I don't care what anyone says. But I felt really good. I had a really good team around me. I loved the pink wig and the pink eyeshadow, and it was fun. It was kind of like that's my little like I'm confident in that field, you know, like that's my realm. That's where I feel good. So it felt like putting on a pair of shoes that you'd worn a million times before. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm back into it. And it was nice to have a day for me, not to think about, besides the breast pump that I had to do in the middle of the shoot, but not to have to think about, anything that was going on at home. It was just really nice to have that moment to me.
Yeah, actually, you've talked about struggling with body image after you had Tallulah. How did you deal with this with Rocky? Yeah,
I kind of I just stopped caring. I know that sounds really bad, but I just didn't, not that I didn't care, but it didn't impact me as much. It just wasn't as much of a focus. And I think looking at Tallulah, especially having a girl, I don't know if it's the same with boys. You obviously know this more, but Tallulah watches everything that I do. I even saw her the other day. She had my eyebrow, brushed.
Oh yeah,
and she was brushing her eyebrows. And I was like, you have watched me. You're a year and a half, and you're watching everything that I'm doing. And I think all those things that you do as a woman subconsciously too, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror or making a remark, she's going to pick up on. So I think it was that where I was like, you know what, I of course it's nice to put effort into how you look, but it can't be the sole focus in your life and the thing that makes or breaks you. So, because I don't want that for my daughter. I don't want her to grow up feeling, some of the things that I've felt. So hopefully if I can, change my perception on all of that, then hopefully she, then she grows up feeling, a bit more confident in herself and her body and less judgmental.
Yeah. So actually let's talk about confidence. So studies show that only 26% of women feel confident every day. I mean, that is a really small amount of women. What's your advice to other women who are struggling with confidence?
Oh, that's a really hard one, because I feel like it's a constant journey for a lot of women.
Yeah, it's a muscle. Maybe that's...
Yeah, like finding people, I don't know, surrounding yourself with good people. I think that's a big thing for your confidence, and people that uplift you and people that are in your corner. And yeah, I think stop trying, when I get, feel like things are starting to spiral and I'm getting really overwhelmed, is like just bringing it all back in, and not thinking too much about the external world and, what really matters, like in life. Like life is short. We have no idea whether we're going to be locked down next week or what's going to happen. And, I think just that, I don't know, yeah, that self-love. And I think who you're surrounded by really has a big impact on that too. And just, yeah, I actually had a mum message me last night on Instagram saying that she was really struggling to lose the baby weight and what was my advice. And kind of broke my heart, because I thought, as a society, we put so much weight, literally, on how a woman looks after she gives birth. And it's the first thing someone will say to you is like, oh my God, you're looking amazing, or, well, you've lost so much weight, and that's such a big focus. And I just think, yeah, bringing it all back in. And now I've got kids. I'm like, you know what? Being a good person is more important for my kids to see, living authentically, being really sure of who I am, standing up for myself, speaking out about things that are not right. Like that to me is confidence. That is real confidence. So those are the things that I start focusing on when it feels like it's getting a bit overwhelming. So it's so much easier said than done, because I've been there. I've picked every single part of my body apart, the way I look, the way I've dressed, all of those things. I think that's naturally what we do as women. So yeah, just bringing back in and remembering what actually matters in life. And really, for me as a mum, what I want my children to how I want them to view me.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesinta, well said. Thank you so much for coming on Extra Healthy-ish.
Beautiful. Thank you for having me.
Wasn't Jess great? She gave some really valuable advice. Whether you're going through motherhood or other things in your life, if you dig deep, surround yourself with people who really matter, it can be a godsend for your self-confidence. I love that interview. So if you want more from us, from Extra Healthy-ish, this podcast, we launch a new episode every morning, Monday to Thursday. If you want more other fantastic health and fitness stories, make sure you log on to bodyandsoul.com.au or follow us on Instagram or Facebook. Thanks again for joining us. And if you have a moment, we'd be so grateful if you could rate, review and subscribe to this podcast. And until tomorrow, stay extra healthy-ish.